think most of us have, at some point, had an idea for a project that we would love to realize sometime in our lives. And for me, my dream was to visit and to photograph some of the world's great ancient trade routes. So when the chance came to renew the photographs that are on the corridors of the Viking ships, starting with the Viking Vela, I knew this was something that I wanted to be involved with. Because the ancient trade routes were great corridors of commerce along which luxury goods and raw materials were traded and bartered for, as well as religions and art and language and social customs. And just as trade routes are corridors, corridors on a ship are also routes because they take you from one place to another and they link you and your stateroom. So as you walk down them, have a look and you'll be following one of the trade routes of the ancient world. These are some of the most precious pieces of amber that you can possibly find. They are precious because they have insects trapped inside them. And this amber will be 45 to 50 million years old. And as the amber seeped out of the tree and then fell into the water, insects got attached to it and the amber solidified around them. And that makes these pieces pretty valuable and beautiful. This photo was taken on a beach in Lithuania, and it shows a guy, wonderful guy, who would describe his job as being a professional amber fisherman. He goes out after a storm. Amber gets churned up in the waves, and he would go into the sea with his net. And if he was lucky, if he was having a lucky day, he would find some pieces of amber. And we did this with him, and we did find little pieces of amber washed up on the beach in Lithuania. This is one of my favorite images, taken in Luxor in Egypt, and it was of this wonderful gentleman who was reading his newspaper in probably the most beaten up, diabolical little cafe I've ever been in my life. But he had this wonderful elegance about him, and he has a very intelligent face, and he's reading his newspaper, and it was a real thrill for me to have it printed this big up on the bulkhead wall of the corridor in the Viking Vela. This image is, again, another one of a series taken for the Incense Road, and it's taken in Alexandria in Egypt, a port on the north coast of Egypt, on a particularly stormy day. Yeah, you can see from the sky how stormy it is. And here we are in Alexandria again, on the Incense Road, at the port at the north end of Egypt. And this is the Great Library. And it is great. It's the most wonderful piece of architecture. It was built or designed by a Norwegian. His name was Snur Hette, and it is a great library. It's wonderful. And if you go to Alexandria, it's something you definitely shouldn't miss. And here is one of my favorite pictures, taken on the Silk Road in a city called Xi'an, which is where the Silk Road actually started in China. And it's this gentleman who's just taking a sunbath. He's got his eyes closed. He's standing in front of the old city walls. And I rather just like this, the way he's isolated by all this nature growing around him. Yeah, I was happy when I took that image. This photo is very special to me because it is of a man called Mr. Young, and it was taken as part of the Silk Road series. And believe it or not, this man, who's now quite elderly, with his brothers who've all died, and a couple of neighbors, went into his fields one day, and they were intending to dig the ground to find a well for water. He stuck his spade in the ground, and lo and behold, he had discovered one of the greatest archaeological finds of the century, of any century, and that is the terracotta army. And with this project, our guests can discover other cultures, history and geography whilst walking along our corridors, continuing their voyage of world discovery with Viking.